You guys, this Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively situation just keeps getting worse with more and more coming out every single day, it feels like. And now Justin's lawyer is speaking out to the press, and he's actually released this voice memo that we're going to listen to, where Justin is describing what went down the night of the It Ends With Us premiere. We're also going to get into what Blake's lawyers have been saying and Justin's lawyers' plans for the future. The whole thing is just such a mess, and we are going to get into everything that has happened. This week, Brian Freeman went on at Megyn Kelly's show to talk about Blake Lively and to discuss an exclusive Justin Baldoni voice message and what it reveals about the dynamic behind the scenes of It Ends With Us. This message was allegedly sent to Justin's editing team, retelling his experience attending the It Ends With Us premiere, which we did get a little insight into in his text messages that were included in his complaint against the New York Times. He was messaging in the group chat called Dream Team, consisting of his editors, where they were discussing the It Ends With Us premiere. Editor 1 says, "Too late, Blank and I talked earlier and agreed we just couldn't be in the same room with Blake. The last day to get our tickets was August 2nd. Editor 2 said, "We'll be loving all of the red carpet looks from you, Justin." Justin says, "Long story, but we won't be in same room. I was asked to not even come to premiere. I can figure it out." Editor 2 says, "I'm glad you're going. You did all of the work." Editor 1 says, "That was the main reason we didn't go, because we were under the impression you wouldn't be there." And in the voice memo, we hear exactly what he claims went down while he was there.
On what, could have been one of the most beautiful nights of my life career-wise, I literally was sent to the basement with all my friends and family for over an hour because I wasn't allowed to be seen. She didn't want me anywhere near her or the rest of the cast. So they ushered me off the carpet and they sent us down to the basement. We were down there together, my friends and family, the people that love me the most, and we start laughing because of the ridiculousness of this whole thing. And I realized, on a night that was supposed to be so materialistically joyful, I was in the basement with the people that I love the most, and we were all joyful and laughing. Because none of that shit matters. None of it. That's not why we're in the business. That's not why the three of us are in this business, is to attend a premiere like that and be celebrated. We're in this business because we're artists, and we believe in what we do, and because we want to create art that touches people's hearts and souls and can move people. And that's what we did. That's what you both did. And I believe that will follow each of us, and that truth will prevail, and that light and love will win.
Justin's lawyer, Brian, has been doing a ton of press talking about the situation and has made it clear that aside from suing the New York Times, they will be coming after Blake Lively directly and will be releasing text messages and much more between Blake and Justin.
There are evidence for all these points. There are text messages for all these points. And unlike any case that I've handled in my entire career, it's the one case we're going to put every single text message, every single document, everything on a website for everyone in the public to read, come to their own conclusions, and they can determine whether or not there was sexual harassment here, there was a smear campaign, or there was retaliation, because we have proof and receipts that absolutely and unequivocally show this is not true.
He also was seen saying they will be suing her into oblivion.
Are you going to sue Blake Lively too?
Into oblivion, Megan. Wait till you see this lawsuit. It's all going to be based on evidence. It's not going to be just a lawsuit. It's going to be the kind of lawsuit that is full of evidence, admissions, documents, which prove exactly what she did and how she bullied her way through the process to take over the movie and used her PR people to try and destroy Justin. There's a number of different defendants here. Stephanie Jones will be all over this complaint. That is the PR agent who was supposed to be working for Justin Baldoni. Leslie Sloan, who's another PR agent who will be part of this lawsuit. That was Blake Lively's. Blake Lively will be sued, and we're carefully considering other people that will be sued also. Ryan Reynolds, for sure.
Justin's lawyer, Brian, later is talking about the harassment allegations made by Blake against Justin Baldoni and Jamie Heath, and brings up that Blake didn't read the book It Ends With Us. I mean, it was a very strange insert that he didn't end up even finishing his point in bringing that up, but this is what he said.
We've just, been through the Me Too movement. We've heard all sorts of serious allegations of harassment that are really meaningful to victims and really important and whatnot. Blake Lively, if she was harassed to such a degree in this film and in this situation, she wouldn't have returned to the film. And they had sat down and they had talked about what her complaints were. The unfortunate thing is she actually didn't read the book and didn't understand what the book was about. And as a result of that, yes, and as a result of that, the complaints are things like he had gone into her trailer when she was breastfeeding, to which there are text messages that address that.
Justin's lawyer has also said to the press that he's crafting up a lawsuit against Blake's PR person, Leslie Sloan, which in his complaint against the New York Times, we see text messages where Justin's team talks about how Blake's publicist, Leslie, thinks all of these negative stories coming out about Blake were their doing when they claim it was not, and that she was doing all of that to herself. Now, since Blake's complaint was published by the New York Times, she has received a wave of support from the industry, from Colleen Hoover, who is the author of It Ends With Us, to co-stars from the film speaking out in her support, to former castmates from the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, her family. Meanwhile, it's been rather quiet on the support for Justin, except in the comment section of most posts discussing this entire legal situation. It's all very interesting, and I think that if it's true that his team is about to put out a website of text messages and more, that the public will have even more to dissect and evaluate online. But it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out legally. The whole situation fascinates me because there are just so many layers here and so many people involved. It's not just a battle between Blake and Justin. There's several others involved as well, from his PR crisis management team, his publicist, business partners. There's his old publicist suing him, and just so many things coming from all these different directions that I don't know where this is all going to settle or when, because it really is just only the beginning, even though there's been so much conversation already about it that feels like it should be at its end by now. But with Brian saying that there's more lawsuits to come, we all better buckle up for the road ahead. This week, Blake's lawyers gave a statement on her behalf in regards to everything going on, and ABC wrote, "In the new statement released January 7th, Lively's lawyers said Miss Lively's federal litigation before the Southern District of New York involves serious claims of harassment and retaliation, backed by concrete facts. This is not a feud arising from creative differences or a he said, she said situation. As alleged in Miss Lively's complaint, and as we will prove in litigation, Wayfarer and its associates engaged in unlawful retaliatory astroturfing against Miss Lively for simply trying to protect herself and others on a film set." They continued, "The statement issued on Lively's behalf also claimed that Baldoni's response, his lawsuit filed December 31st against the New York Times, was allegedly meant to launch more attacks against Miss Lively since her filing." The statement continued, "While we go through the legal process, we urge everyone to remember that harassment and retaliation are illegal in every workplace and in every industry. A classic tactic to distract from allegations of this type of misconduct is to blame the victim by suggesting that they invited the conduct, brought it on themselves, misunderstood the intentions, or even lied. Another classic tactic is to reverse the victim and offender and suggest that the offender is actually the victim. These concepts normalize and trivialize allegations of serious misconduct." The statement concluded, "Most importantly, media statements are not a defense to Miss Lively's legal claims. We will continue to prosecute her claims in federal court where the rule of law determines who prevails, not hyperbole and threats." In response to what Blake's lawyers had to say, Justin's lawyer issued a statement saying, "It is painfully ironic that Blake Lively is accusing Justin Baldoni of weaponizing the media when her own team orchestrated this vicious attack by sending the New York Times grossly edited documents prior to even filing the complaint. We are releasing all of the evidence which will show a pattern of bullying and threats to take over the movie. None of this will come as a surprise because, consistent with her past behavior, Blake Lively used other people to communicate those threats and bully her way to get whatever she wanted. We have all the receipts and more." Now, in all of this, people are trying to look back at old interviews and really understand some of what went on and what was said at the time the movie came out, because it's rather confusing, especially when it comes to them talking about having an intimacy coordinator. In Blake's complaint, it's noted that some of the demands that she had in order to resume filming after the strike were no improvising of kissing, all intimate touch must be choreographed in advance with Blake Lively and an intimacy coordinator, no biting or sucking of lip without Blake Lively consent, and all intimate on-camera touch and conversations must be in character, not spoken from Mr. Baldoni to Blake Lively personally. And also an intimacy coordinator must be on set for all scenes involving nudity and or stimulated and must have a monitor to ensure compliance. This had people feeling like this wasn't happening before, especially when the New York Times wrote, during shooting, Blake Lively, the co-star, had complained that the men had repeatedly violated physical boundaries and made other inappropriate comments to her. Their studio, Wayfarer, agreed to provide a full-time intimacy coordinator, bring in an outside producer, and put other safeguards on set. In a side letter to Miss Lively's contract, signed by Mr. Heath, the studio also agreed not to retaliate against the actress. It made it sound like to people that there was not an intimacy coordinator until she complained. But in Justin's complaint against the New York Times, we see what is claiming to be text messages between him and Blake where they are discussing a intimacy coordinator. And this was kind of Justin's proof in his New York Times lawsuit that, we did have one and she didn't want to meet her at first. Justin texts Blake and says, just hired intimacy coordinator who I love. We'll set you up to meet/FaceTime with her next week for an intro. Blake says, I feel good. I can meet her when we start. Thank you though. He then texts a female producer about the fact that Blake didn't want to meet the coordinator until they started shooting and said, just FYI, just wanted to tell you about this. Seems she doesn't want to meet intimacy coordinator until we start, which may mess up the workflow, but I can still meet with her, of course. Female producer says that's fine if she doesn't want to meet her now. You'll just have to walk her through what you and Blake are thinking. Now, I don't know when these messages were sent, but we can see the next message to this female producer was April 6, 2023. So this seems to hint that they did have a coordinator hired from the very beginning of filming. Of course, it could be the case that this person was not on set at all times and Blake wanting this person to be later on after experiencing things on set. And I will also say that her not wanting to meet them until they started filming doesn't mean that she never wanted to meet them, but it is interesting the things that are coming out and the things that people are finding in interviews, because there is an interview of Justin and Blake where they are talking about the intimacy coordinator that they had. This was what Blake had to say.
So talk to me about how sometimes you were even the intimacy coordinator in some of those sexier scenes. Like we saw you.
That shouldn't be happening, by the way. I just want to be clear that you should not be the intimacy coordinator. You should definitely hire intimacy coordinators, which we did have. Thank
you
goodness.
were teaching Justin how to pull you in.
Where have you seen
that.
this?
That
I
clip.
actually just saw it too. It was on Instagram yesterday, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think that romance is really important. You're supposed to, tell a story well and make people feel, but you're also supposed to do it in a way that is like safe and respectful for all. I guess that's the role of intimacy coordination. But when I think of my involvement in the film, I don't really see that as the thing that I did. I did probably everything else. You touched on everything else here and there, but yeah, we were really lucky I'm fortunate to be able to have had such an all-encompassing experience on this film.
And like I said, Justin was also seen talking about the intimacy coordinator before, and this is what he had to say.
Right when we started pre-production, we started searching for our intimacy coordinator, and we ended up having 2 intimacy coordinators because we had a big long break in between because we had 2 strikes. We had a writer strike and an actor strike happen. So we had 2 intimacy coordinators. And early on, as I was beginning to start the process of adapting this film, I'm a man, and this is a story that is told through the lens of a woman. And especially when it relates to intimacy scenes and to scenes where there is a mix of intimacy and violence, I wanted to make sure that those scenes had a female gaze. And in no way was I running them through my male brain. As much as I can try to see the world as a woman, I never will be able to. And I know what I don't know. So early on, we brought on an intimacy coordinator, and I started meeting with her to figure out, what are ways that I can shoot this? How can this always reflect back, one, to the source material, and while we might not be recreating exactly what was in the book, how can we recreate the feeling and the emotion and what Lily was experiencing in each of those scenes as it relates to the book. And then when it came to bringing on the stunt coordinator, also it was important to me that it was a woman. We brought on Lauren Shaw.
Now, I don't know if this was his PR answer and he was trying to be nice, but it's interesting that he talks about wanting to take a back seat for the female gaze to come across in this film when a lot of what he is upset about is Blake taking control of the movie.
Who's also a dear friend of mine. And we all worked together to figure out, well, how can
the intimacy of this and the violence kind of work together. How can we make sure everyone feels safe? How can we rehearse and go through the process? Blake was very involved in that and had amazing ideas and was very hands-on with the choreography of it as well. And you know, honestly, there were many instances on set where I just let the women figure it out, and I took a step back and kind of jumped in more as an actor in those scenes than even as a director, because I didn't want this to feel like it was in any way like these scenes were shot by a man and through a male perspective. I really wanted this to continue and to always be in Lily's perspective and point of view. So yeah, it was great just watching them, and then, you know, Blake choreographing and working with them and everybody. It was just, yeah, some of the most fulfilling moments on set was just watching them figure this out, and then I actually got to just jump in as an actor.
But that is just some of the conversations that are being had at the moment and what Justin's lawyer has had to say recently. We will just have to wait and see how this whole thing plays out in court. But as of right now, that is what is going on in the whole situation. I want to know what you guys think about everything. Let me know your thoughts. I love you guys so much, and I will talk to you in the next video. Bye, guys.